Method of expression that George Orwell talked about in the novel 1984 is here. That black is white and white is black, and language is turned on its ear and has no meaning anymore. When you look at these tragic cases, you're struck by a very basic fact. Homicide, as we all know, by definition, is the unjustified killing of another person with malice. But if the unborn child is a legal person, as these cases necessarily imply, then legal abortion is nothing more or less than the taking of a life of another person. None of the circumstances surrounding legal abortion, that it's performed by a physician, in a clinic, with maternal consent, that it's private and legal, as we say, none of these changes that fundamental point. The life being taken is a person. And yet we see that abortion is legal under the magic wand of the privacy right in Roe versus Wade. It's transformed from homicide to a constitutional right. When the mother and her physician carry out the procedure under the aegis of that privacy right. So it would seem to me that it follows inexorably that with legal abortion, we finally severed the right to life from personhood. The unalienable right to life that Jefferson proclaimed in the Declaration for some persons is now alienable, subject to confiscation, subject to destruction by the state operating under the license granted in Roe versus Wade. And so we have chaos and confusion. It gets smoothed over and explained and apologized for and extenuated in the press a whole lot. But still it's chaos and confusion. In a realm where principles of justice and moral reasoning have little weight. It seems to me the challenge that lies ahead for leaders in the field of law, which is, of course, on the cutting edge. You confront lawyers and judges, legislators, so many of whom are lawyers, confront this every day in the public square, in the courtrooms, in the legislatures, in the Congress of this country. Leaders in this field, above all fields, the challenge is to bring the light of America's founding principles and sound moral and legal reasoning, in the words of the mission statement of this university. The lawyers here are trained to be good lawyers within the realm of moral principles. It's not an unfettered, unlimited excellence. There is a governing device that brings us back to fundamental truth in this whole exercise. To bring those kinds of talents, those kinds of values, to bear on these and many other problems which today are tearing asunder the fabric of our society. I want to state now a conviction that I have. It's an empirical conviction, not a wish. A conviction that abortion has not and never will take a permanent place in our culture. In a country whose whole reason for being is to affirm the goodness and equality of all human life, How could such a thing ever fit in? This, I think, explains why other societies have pretty much accepted abortion with little argument. But in this country, it tears us apart. Father Byron said it's divisive. You know why it's divisive? Because it's foreign to the American character. That's why. And the people know it. Because you can't silence this debate with a piece of paper or a federal edict. Because that decision tore apart all of the relationships. So central and so important to the majority of the people in this country, between husband and wife, between mother and child, between the family relationship and the state. All these things were just torn apart by that decision. Is it any wonder, therefore, that 20 years later, the cases still keep coming up inexorably from Texas and from Pennsylvania and Missouri and Massachusetts, all across this country? They keep coming. That hasn't happened with Brown versus Board of Education, has it? I'll come to that in just a minute. There's a big difference between those two decisions. But this country's heritage, tradition, the American experience, is foreign to the idea of the taking of innocent unborn human life. Other countries accept it for the simple reason other countries are not America. You see, we claim to be different. Read the words of the Declaration. We claim to be different. And many people in this country, and I'm one of them, take that Declaration as it's written, just as all of us, it seems to me, have an obligation to take the mission statement of this great university as it's written. This is who we claim to be. And the people of this country are saying, prove it. They're saying that to the Democratic Party. They're saying it with increasing frequency to the Republican Party. Be who you claim to be. Put up or shut up. Put your money where your mouth is. Talk is cheap. Results are what count. Other countries are not America. So it goes down a lot easier there than it does here. Thank God. No other country began with a promise on its sacred honor to love and protect all human life equally. That's a pledge only one nation on earth is sworn to keep. And our people know it. And that's why this debate rages. And that's why it's divisive. And that's why it's not going to go away. And that's why when they told us after the '92 election it was finished, that the values debate had been laid to rest, they were as wrong as they could be. They don't understand what's going on in this country. And because of that, they're going to be swept aside. Because there's a tide moving across this country. And it's coming directly from the people themselves. And you know something? They're up to here. They've had the course with what's going on in this country today where values are concerned. And it's going to change. The only way that you have change in a democratic society. And that's at the ballot box. Everything else is just talk. Everything else is just nice, polite discussion. But this change will be made by the people. It'll be made at the ballot box. Just as it's always been in this country of ours. I want to make a prediction today for the students that are here and those that will come after who will be sitting in this auditorium. In the lifetime of law students now enrolled here at the Catholic University of America, their successors here will study Roe versus Wade with bewilderment as a sad, mysterious chapter in American history when America briefly lost its way. I'm certain this is going to happen because of my own conviction, because of what's going on in this country, in the Congress of the United States, Hyde Amendment, Freedom of Choice Act, health care, with the monstrous abortion language in that bill, all have passed away. Not passed to Congress, but passed away. We're winning this battle, contrary to the popular notions you read about in the press.